Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Salesforce Ben webinar, this time with Copado, where we will be exploring how to make Salesforce DevOps easier and faster with AI. If you're looking for ways to tackle common challenges like deployment conflicts or manual processes, then AI-powered solutions could very well be the answer. We'll be tackling real-world examples of how AI is scaling operations, eliminating bottlenecks, and future-proofing workflows. So whether you're already deep into DevOps or just starting to explore AI's potential, this session is definitely going to have some valuable insights into how you can leverage AI to enhance your operations. Today, we are joined by David Brooks, Senior Vice President of Evangelism at Copado. He also spent nearly 9 years at Salesforce as the Vice President of Product Management, where he was responsible for building the App Exchange and later managing teams on the Force.com platform team. At Copado, he is committed to helping customers implement DevOps for the Salesforce platform. We're also joined by David Venegas, the Director of AI and Data Program at Copado. David has expertise in leveraging AI, automation, and data to address complex business challenges. And most recently, he launched the Copado AI DevOps Agents product to automate and streamline work for development teams around the world. Having more than 7 years of experience in the Salesforce ecosystem with a proven track record of leading successful product launches, generating millions in revenue, you are definitely in good hands. So without further ado, I will hand over to David and we can get started.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you very much, and welcome everyone. I'm just going to go over the agenda really for you. First, we're going to start out with what are the challenges in DevOps and kind of set the stage here very briefly. And then we're going to go into a section where we're saying, what does it mean to infuse AI into DevOps? What does that really do for you in a generic sense? And then what are the benefits? And we'll go into a section where we'll show you a demo. David will show you a demo of the Copado AI agents in the DevOps process and really give you a good idea of how this is going to help improve your DevOps processes and actually improve your productivity. And then we'll end quickly with a couple of real-world success stories of customers that have already been using this product for a while. And then finally, open it up for Q&A. We should have a couple of 10 minutes left at the end for Q&A. And as you're going through this session, if you want to go ahead and just use the Q&A window to ask your questions, then we will get to them as we get to that section. Thank you very much. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. So DevOps as we know it today, what are the challenges? Well, the real challenge is that it's really difficult to get from the idea, the innovation idea, all the way into business impact. Now, notice I didn't say from user story to release, because that is a very DevOps-centric way of thinking about things. What you really want to think about is the whole purpose of DevOps is to be able to deliver value to the business in production where they're working, and to make sure that that really does deliver value today. Unfortunately, there's a lot of diverse team dynamics and business trying to work with the software development teams and product management. And really the challenge is if you don't do it right, there's missed deadlines, overworked teams, and business disruptions. You know what? At Copado, we like to say that our mission is to make sure that release management teams can go home in the evening and be with their family and spend time at home on the weekends, because it's really important for us that you do that. And so one of the challenges is the complexity, the real life complexity that's out there. And so for large organizations especially, but also for small organizations, what happens, you have multiple regions that you're dealing with, and many companies are multinational today. There's very few companies that are really focused in one geographic area. So you've got multiple regions that you're dealing with different pricing and currency and tax and all of that good stuff. And then you've got multiple clouds. When I was at Salesforce in 2005, we really only had Force.com and the Sales and Service Cloud, and it was really one application. But today you've got Marketing Cloud, Commerce Cloud becoming released, revenue lifecycle management. You've got MuleSoft. You've got integrations with ERP and other applications out there. Salesforce is no longer an island. It's just really deeply integrated with other clouds, including their own clouds. And then you got multiple environments. There are very few companies out there now that have a single production org. You've got sandboxes to deal with, and multiple production orgs out there. And really, if you've got Marketing Cloud and Commerce Cloud, you've really got another org that you're dealing with anyway. MuleSoft has its own environment to deal with. So it's multiple environments. And then because of these multiple teams dealing with these multiple pipelines, you've got multiple processes that you're trying to deal with because they all vary a little bit between. And I showed this slide to a Gartner analyst recently, and he said, this really does capture the problems, but it really doesn't capture the magnitude of the problems, because these are not just four individual sets of challenges. These things compound on each other. So the Gartner analyst said this was basically complexity to the fourth power. So it's really difficult, and you really need a great process. It's people, process, and tools, right? So you need a good process, you need a well-educated team, and then you need the right tools to help you with that. So we're going to switch now to how does AI actually impact this. So I'm going to turn it over to my buddy David Venegas, and we're going to talk about driving a revolution with AI. David?
Totally. Thanks, David. And thanks to everyone joining us today. It's really exciting to have you here. And many of you are wondering, how does AI impact DevOps? And with David Brooks, we were at Dreamforce a few weeks ago, and AI was everywhere. And the way that we see things here at Copado is that DevOps teams use language day in and day out in all the work that DevOps teams do. Because if you think about it, if, for example, we have a feature that we need to implement or a bug that we need to fix, we normally jump on a call and have a conversation about it. And then as a business analyst, I can go ahead and start writing my requirements document after that call. And then these requirement documents end up being user stories, which then developers implement once they get into the sprint. And so developers create code out of the requirements in these user stories. And when this feature is ready, then testers come in and then they create test plans and also test scripts to test all these functionality. And then when this feature finally gets released into production, we have product owners and change managers creating documentation so that end users can effectively adopt this new feature. So if you think about it, DevOps teams are working with language every day, and large Gen AI with large language models are here to impact the work that DevOps teams do every single day as they work on their user stories, on their requirements, on their code, on their test scripts, and on their documentation. So when we talk about planning, we have business analysts who have to turn these problems and these ideas into practical requirements, things that are going to add value to the organization. And so when you talk about the work that I need to do, many times I might be having a ton of work coming from the business. And so that can be a stressful environment. And with AI, it has the power to really accelerate the work that you do as a business analyst by helping you turn your conversations. Imagine if you record your call transcripts or you have your recordings, and just have AI convert that into your requirements document. And then once you have that document, you can even work with AI to break it down into multiple user stories. So think about for a moment, all the time saved that AI can bring to you by being able to convert these conversations into the user stories that developers need to work on. So now you have the time and space to think about, okay, what additional details, what other things should my user stories do now that AI has helped me with an initial plan and requirement?
Yeah, so David, in my, I'm not trying to steal thunder from the upcoming slides, but one of the points that I think is becoming clear is that the requirements and planning phase of AI is becoming more and more important. When in a world where AI can help you do the build and the test and the release, based on your plan, the plan becomes really more important. So the more clarity you have, the less ambiguity you have, the better. In fact, I was talking to our lead, the chief technology officer responsible for AI the other day, and he was saying that some of the code gen that he did was wrong, and he looked at it and he realized that his plan, the way he had created his plan, could be interpreted three different ways. And his version of wrong was that the AI chose one of his other meanings. And so you need, your plan needs to be unambiguous, it needs to be clear, and it needs to be complete. And that's going to kind of a change from the typical agile philosophy that says, just enough detail, just in time, because those developers are going to be sitting next to you in the same room. So you don't need to plan very well. They can answer questions on the fly. David, are your developers sitting in the same room with you anymore?
Well, not really. And in this modern world, everybody is, around the world in different time zones, even speaking different languages. So really, there's a great opportunity here for AI to streamline the work that DevOps teams do. And as you said, it starts with planning, right? Because many times in your companies, you can have multiple business analysts or product owners writing user stories in many different ways, or, for example, missing some details. So by putting AI into the workflow, it can even fill the gaps and add reminders so that you make sure that you add all the necessary details so that when you hand over that piece of document or work to the next people in the DevOps stage, they have all the necessary information to do features successfully and minimize the amount of rework that needs to be done later.
Speaking of the next phase, we got build.
Absolutely. And perhaps many of you have seen already examples out there like GitHub Copilot or some other tools that generate code. And that's one example of how to use AI in the build stage to elevate the way that you create software and even elevate the quality as well. Because with AI, it can detect, for example, any bad practices in existing code, or when you're generating new code with AI, it can even generate it already with particular already some of the best practices that you have in place. And this is really a key aspect of as well what we're doing here at Copado, making sure that you can add your guidelines and your best practices so that when AI generates the code, it does it not only fast, but also making sure that it's specific to you, how things should be done in your company. And we're going to show a little bit more of that in the demo. So, and finally, how many developers like to write test cases? Well, not many, right? There's a lot of exciting things that we can be doing, creating new features. But test cases are really important to make sure that you don't introduce bugs in production. And then you can actually go faster and then spend more time in innovation because you're making sure that all the features that you built before, there are quality checks and there's test coverage. So AI can quickly generate test code for you so that you can increase the quality of the overall Salesforce org.
And Dave, is that unit tests or functional tests or both?
Well, that's actually, they're both, if you think about it, they're both language. So unit tests, they're written in specific Apex code or JavaScript or Lightning Web Components. But functional tests, they're actually written in plain English, right? Or if you have a testing tool, that's another type of script. So absolutely, AI is able to help for both unit tests, but also functional tests that testers are working on.
Cool. Well, then that sets us up for our next category of testing. How does AI help testing?
Absolutely. So for those testers out there, think of, when you have this new feature or this new release that's coming out to production, think about, not only all the new things that I need to test, but also I need to make sure that all my previous regression tests and everything that I've done before doesn't break either. So there's a lot of work that comes into testing, and this varies from company to company, but some companies even block a full week just for doing testing, manual testing, and also automated testing before a release goes live. So there's really a lot that goes into testing. And so with AI, can really accelerate the work in terms of understanding what these new features are by either looking at a user story or looking at the code, and then actually coming up with a test plan for manual testing in UAT, or even an automated regression test. So think about the power that this has to accelerate the work. And then actually, if AI is able to generate all the happy scenarios and all the common scenarios, now you can think more creatively and outside the box, like, okay, how can I actually break this feature now? So AI not only can accelerate your work, but it can actually make your work more fun because AI's got you covered with the main scenarios, and you can innovate with new scenarios for testing.
So this is both positive and negative tests, as they say in the industry, right? So I can check boundary conditions, corner cases, things like that. And the AI, can the AI generate data sets for me? Because, test data is a pain. I don't like generating test data at all.
Absolutely. And test data is, you can leverage AI to create small, medium, large data sets and even be specific. Let's say you want addresses from a specific zip code or country. And so it can even generate those. So you can even get very creative with AI in terms of test data.
That's really cool. And for manual testing, can AI help with manual testing? I mean, if I'm doing a point and click test as a subject matter expert, or if I'm in UAT, how can AI help me in UAT?
Absolutely. So, because you have this knowledge of the user stories that are being worked on and what my requirements document have, as a UAT tester, I could actually work with AI to explain to me anything that that's entailed in this capability, and even guide me. I can ask it to create some step-by-step guide on how to do my UAT testing as well.
Wow, that's really cool. All right. So now we build it, we planned it, we built it, we tested it, and now we're going to release it. I mean, there's a lot of automation already in CI/CD. Why do I need an AI?
Yeah, absolutely. So whether independently of which CI/CD tool you're using, there's always room for improvement. And especially in the Salesforce world with metadata and code, many of you know that you can encounter different kinds of deployment errors simply because there's a conflict somewhere, or there's a configuration that's different between one environment and the other. So these things can really stop your release to production, and can even happen for hours or even days. So AI can accelerate troubleshooting by helping you understand what's the root cause of your issue. So you can work with AI to get unblocked when you have any deployment errors or any problems when it comes to Salesforce. And additionally, from a release perspective, it's important to communicate to stakeholders when a new release to production has happened. And depending on the type of release manager you are, you might be less comfortable in having to write release notes all the time. And so you can actually work with AI to automate the creation of your release notes based on what's getting deployed. And this is really key because you can even fine tune based on your audience. So you can create release notes for an executive audience that will be more summarized and more about the value. You can also create release notes for a more technical audience, which can expand on some of the more technical details as well of the release you're doing.
Wow. So let me double click on that, because I think what I heard you say was you can create release notes based on what was actually deployed. I mean, one of the challenges I always had in development was that you do a sprint plan, and the sprint plan says we're going to do these 20 stories, but then something always happens and you're never able to. There's like 5 stories that don't get released, or even when you're doing a big release, you go to the change control board, there's 100 stories, and those guys on the CCB refuse to let us release these 20 stories. They're like compliance issues or something, how dare they? But now I've got 80 stories that I got to document at the last minute and pull out all the information about. So are you telling me that the AI tool can actually look at the user stories that actually made it into the deployment and write a release note for that?
Absolutely. That's exactly. And even if you have teams around the world and you need to communicate your release in different languages, you can even generate in 3 languages so that everybody in your organization is able to quickly get acquainted with the new release.
哇，那好棒了，我很高兴啊。
Bien sûr, j'ai pas compris tout, mais c'est bien.
Awesome,
Well, I
awesome.
hope for our audience from China and France, hope you understood some of our dialogue here with David.
Yeah, I hope my pronunciation was good enough. Anyway, this is great. So now, I mean, this is the bane of my existence when I did UAT and I had a final release, and now I needed to communicate to my users what what they're actually getting. And now a tool can help me create the release notes in multiple languages to all of my users based on their role and their that's mind-blowing. That's amazing, David. Well, so operate, what is I sometimes I see this as monitor. Why is this operate, not just monitor?
Well, because ultimately, when you monitor, what you're really doing is you want to have control and be able to take your applications forward and make sure they get adopted. And so that's why operating is a more precise term of this stage, because as you release all these amazing features to production, you want to make sure that your end users know about how to use them and how to troubleshoot if there's any errors. And so you can work with AI to convert these user stories into documentation with all the details. And you can even ask AI to create FAQs. And so think about how much time you can accelerate, especially if you're a change manager or a product owner that's enabling end users. This is really going to help accelerate that work. And also, if your end users reach out to you because they encounter an exception or an error, something's not working, you can also work with AI to troubleshoot those application errors, to have your users unblocked, or even to feed back into the DevOps cycle and create a user story with that issue that's happening so that now your DevOps team can go ahead and fix it.
Well, that's amazing. And a lot of times, even though we got excited about the release notes in the previous section, I found a lot of users don't even read the release notes that you give them, and so they just want a set of FAQs. But it seems to me like from the operation and the support of your user base that could you like take all the release notes that you accumulate over time and like put them in a workspace or something so that in an AI so that I don't have to answer these silly questions from my users, that the users can just ask an AI about the applications that my team built and they could just like self-serve through an AI that knows the answers. Is that possible?
Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing more, this that you can desire to improve than receiving tons of questions from end users. And because you have your responsibilities, right? There's many things you have to do. So by adding all the knowledge of the user stories and the features and everything that's been implemented in your features and applications, you can add that knowledge to AI. So now all those end users can interact with AI and get onboarded, get unblocked, and ask any questions they have. And so now I can finally have time to finish all my projects that I'm working on.
Yeah, and do a coffee break because you got to walk down to Starbucks and get your coffee and it just I don't have time for all these user questions. Come on.
Absolutely. And the great thing with AI is that it's as good as also the data that you feed it. So if you want it to be more accurate, more precise, you have to feed it with your knowledge and also your guidelines and your best practices. So that as it's generating code for your developers, as it's generating user stories for your business analysts, documentation, release notes, and all these wonderful assets that we've talked about, you want to make sure that they're made following your company standards and your team standards as well. So think about guidelines that you want to make sure AI knows about how to write user stories so that they're all consistent. So all developers, when they get a user story, it has all the information that it needs to have. But also at the same time, when AI is generating code, you want to make sure it follows any naming conventions, any best practices, trigger frameworks, error handling frameworks that your company has standardized. So then you can reduce the amount of time you do pull requests because the code that's getting generated already includes these best practices. And also, even for documentation, you can make sure that all your documentation for your applications and features follow a specific format, style, and even how to do FAQs and things like that. So we're going to look at that a little bit in the demo, but you can already start thinking about this, and most probably many of you have some of these things already documented, and so that's perfect because then you're ahead into tapping into AI.
That's awesome. Well, so that's kind of the generic impact that AI can have on your DevOps processes. We're going to move a little bit into a Copado-centric view of the world here and give you a demo of some of this stuff working. And the first thing to keep in mind is that a DevOps tool. We talked earlier about a people and process, right? People and process most important, but then you need a tool that can work with you. And you remember that complexity slide that we talked about? There's a lot of complexity and there's a lot of variation in processes that are used in different teams. And so you need a platform. You need a real DevOps platform to actually take care of this. And you need one that goes end to end. It needs to be just as strong in plan as it is in operate and everything in between. And so what Copado has done is create a DevOps platform that really helps you through all 5 stages of the DevOps process. But in addition, infuse that with AI power because we want you to go faster, we want you to go better, safer, and produce better code. But we also want to emphasize that this is AI powered, but it's not made to eliminate your jobs, and we don't think that's going to happen. We're people focused, and so people are the heart of the DevOps team and the DevOps process, and they will remain the heart and soul of DevOps and development. And so what we've done is we've provided AI assistance to the team members that will benefit from this, but it's people focused. It's all about empowering the teams of all skill levels and all sizes. And in fact, surveys and studies have shown that the people that benefit the most from AI are the people whose skills maybe are not the best. They're not the 90th percentile. They're the people in the 70th and 80th percentile that get a boost from this AI and actually enable them to perform at the same level as their peers. And so this is really important. And in fact, one more thing I'll comment on right here. Test is sitting right in the middle of this thing, and test looks like it's an individual phase of DevOps, and it is, but testing should be infused throughout the entire process. Testing can be done, you can shift right into operate, you can shift left into the building and planning phase. It's all about taking care of tests as early as possible, and also once something has gone to production. So testing is not just a single phase in the middle there. Just keep that in mind. And now we wanted to give you an introduction to our DevOps agents. And so what we discovered was that the agents we had a product called Copado GPT. We've had that out for a year. We've learned a lot from our customers. Customers have benefited a lot from reducing the amount of time that they needed for support because they could get answers directly from Copado GPT. But now we've upgraded Copado GPT to something we're calling Copado Expert, and that is an agent that knows all about using Copado, helps people onboard faster, helps people answer questions about the use of the tool. But then we've discovered that these other agents for each individual's phase of DevOps need to be trained more deeply and given more context into the individual phase of DevOps. So for example, the plan agent knows what agile planning is all about. They know best practices in general about agile planning. All of the agents know a lot about Salesforce. They've got 10 years worth of Copado's knowledge of Salesforce embedded into our agents as a layer on top of the large language model. And then these agents now have a layer on top of that give you more expertise in that particular phase of DevOps. And then in addition, your team and your company is able to add documents to what we're calling workspaces that give specific company-specific information for your DevOps process in your company. And so without further ado, we're going to let David give you a demo of that and show you how it works.
Absolutely. That's pretty exciting, David. And the great thing about the beta that we had over the past year is that we've had more than 300 customers join. And also they did more than 50,000 AI interactions or prompts. And so that's just an amazing amount of adoption. And so we're pretty excited to now move from the beta into GA, which is what we launched at Dreamforce. And so let me go ahead and share my screen so you can now see the agents live. So the great thing is that you have different AI agents that you can interact with. So you can see here we have the plan agent that helps business analysts with creating their user stories and also their requirements document. And even as an architect, you can also design some of the architecture design for your user stories. And this is just the beginning of the DevOps phases. And so developers can then work with the build agent to create code or even improve existing code and even generate those test classes that we talked about earlier. And additionally, once that code is ready, testers can work with the test agent to create those test plans that test data, all those different scenarios, and even test scripts as well to automate your test. And then once this is getting deployed, release managers can work with the release agent to create those release notes to communicate to stakeholders and even get accelerate troubleshooting with any deployment errors or any blockers that you might find during the release. And finally, product owners and change managers can work with the operate agent to create those documentation and training guides for end users, and even brainstorm ideas on how to improve existing applications and troubleshoot issues that end users are facing. And you'll also see the Copado expert that we've added here, especially for those who are new to the Copado product. They can ask as many questions as they need about Copado. So why don't we get started here? A few weeks ago, I had a conversation with Kevin, one of our consultants that we work with here at Copado, and we were talking about a case escalation feature that we would like to implement. And so I've just uploaded a call transcript based on the call that we had where we discussed all the different scenarios for our case escalation capability. So now that I have this call transcript here, I'm going to work with the plan agent to go ahead and help me create some user stories for these case escalation feature. Now, if you think about it, a call transcript is language, user stories are language, and so AI in the plan agent is intelligent enough to take that conversation and go ahead and draft user stories for this feature. So think about it, especially for all the business analysts in our audience. Think about how much time you can save by simply spinning up all these requirements that you can add in a document, or you can go ahead and already create in go ahead and spin up in Jira and Azure once you feel comfortable and happy with the requirements. And the great thing as well is that these sections that you see here, there's acceptance criteria, there's functional specifications, there's technical specifications that are proposed based on the user story. All these different criteria here, you could actually define in your guidelines. And so you can see that this is my guideline document for creating user stories. You can see that we have the sections that you saw before, the acceptance criteria, functional specifications, and proposed technical specifications. And the reason why the plan agent is following this structure is because I've uploaded these guidelines into my workspace. So the workspaces is where you add all your members of your team. And then in the workspace, you can add all the knowledge that your team needs to be aware of, and also any guidelines and best practices. So you can see that I've already uploaded my user story guidelines here. And so when working with the plan agent, it's going to follow these guidelines. And then I have development guidelines as well, and that the build agent is going to follow when creating code. And then there's documentation guidelines that our operate agent will follow when creating documentation. So let's take a look at them now that we've worked with our plan agent to create our user stories. And these user stories made it to the sprint. We can have developers working with the build agent to generate some of the code needed for this user story, our escalation assignment user story. So this code that's going to be generated here, it's going to be based on the description that's on the user story, and it's going to follow our development guidelines. And the development guidelines that I uploaded in our workspace include general rules for best practices. For example, not doing DML statements inside loops, not doing SOQL queries inside loops. These are security and static code analysis best practices that you want to make sure you have in your code. And I also have other types of guidelines, for example, naming conventions. In this example, I want to make sure that in our company, our Apex classes, they follow a kebab naming convention, which is a dash separated naming convention. And even I want to make sure that at the end, we follow with dash Copado. And when it comes to methods, I want to make sure we use camel case for simplicity. So if we go back to our generated code that the build agent built, you can see that it's following our guideline for code generation. It's doing the kebab naming convention, and it's adding my dash Copado at the end. And also when it comes to methods, it's using the camel case method so that it's easy and simple to read and reference. Now, additionally, you can explain different frameworks that you're using in code to AI. Just like if you have a new employee and you have to explain all these guidelines and best practices, you can go ahead and add these guidelines into these documents so that the AI agents are aware of them. So for example, I have here an exception and error handling framework called the Nebula Logger. Perhaps many of you already know this framework, which creates a record behind the scenes whenever there's an exception, so you can easily troubleshoot. And I've explained here how some examples of how to use this logger framework, either in Apex code or in Lightning Web Components. So with this simple explanation, our build agent was able to grab these guidelines, and you can see that some of these logger framework are being used over here as well. So you can see that these are leveraging whether it's an error and then what type of error it is as well. So this is all about code, and we can actually also generate test classes for this code. And this is important to increase the code coverage that you have whenever creating code, because as a developer, you want to make sure that your Apex code has at least 75% coverage. Otherwise, it won't be able to be deployed. And you can have AI already create some initial scenarios for you. So here it's creating multiple scenarios, more than 4 scenarios. So think about all the time that this would have taken you if you would just do it from scratch. But actually, you can accelerate the work by having the build agent help you with all these different positive and negative scenarios, and even having test data. As you can see here, there's some sample cases that with different priority levels. So there are different scenarios here. So think about, all the time that you're going to save so that you can now think more creatively and also focus on the more complex pieces of code that need to be built.
Okay, David, I just want to interject here. So that's great, but can I trust this code? Can I just blindly say this is going to work and go on from there? Or do I still need to do reviews and pull requests and things like that?
Yes, totally. So quality in your development process and pipelines should always be there to make sure that you have the necessary test coverage, that the best practices are being taken care of, and our Copado CI/CD product takes care of that with our quality gates feature in your pipelines. And what AI is here to do is actually reduce the amount of findings that will be done when you deploy this code. Because normally today, if I don't follow some of the best practices or guidelines because I forgot, later in the pipeline when I'm deploying it, or when somebody does a pull request review, they're going to remind me that, hey, you missed this naming convention, you missed using the logger framework. So that's now I need to go back to this user story that I stopped working a few days ago and do some changes. So that's very inefficient. And as a developer, I always want to be working on the next new thing and not having to go back. So by having AI help you in the beginning and shifting left, so making sure you follow all these guidelines, I can make sure I can do my work and then not have to revisit this user story again.
But I can treat my AI can really be thought of as a junior developer. And so, it's trust but verify. You're still going to need to review the code in the beginning and make sure that you're there. And in some cases, as I mentioned earlier, if you find an error in the code, a lot of times it's because the requirements document wasn't quite clear, or maybe ambiguous in some cases, or you forgot to provide, for example, that document that you showed, which was here's the way we want our code, the code quality and the code format requirements and things like that, right? So we have about 2 or 3 more minutes. What goodies have you got to show us?
Absolutely. So working with AI means you're going to be having a lot of code that's going to be getting created, a lot of user stories. So for example, if before in a regular sprint, I was able to do 4 user stories, I may be able to do 6 or 7 or even 8 now that I'm working with AI. So that means there's more testing that needs to be done. So testers can work with the test agent to make sure they accelerate the test plans, accelerate creating regression tests, and even having test plans for UAT users. Think of this innovation. UAT and the business will be able to get double the features that they were able to get before. So now UAT users need to make sure that they follow the testing plans to make sure that all the features and innovation they're getting, it's gonna be thoroughly tested and make sure that it works for the business. So you can have the test agent creating these manual test plans and have the test data created for you. So as a tester, I can do what's most fun of the part of the job, which is actually find more scenarios to break my application. And these test plans, you can actually convert them into automated test scripts, because the test agent is expert in our Copado robotic testing application that creates tests with simple to read keywords or commands, as you can see here, to click a text, to select a pick list value, etc. So you can create Salesforce ready tests based on your requirements. And so this is a great productivity gain here from a testing perspective, and the test agent is an expert in creating these automated test scripts as well.
So David, if it can create robotic test scripts from English, can it translate my Selenium scripts into robotic testing as well?
Absolutely. It's able to create translate from other automated testing tools. So you can even, if you have a custom framework or something you've created in-house, you can even explain the test agent how that framework works. So you can even translate those custom test languages as well.
Wow, that's amazing. Give us one more demo, and then we need to go to Q&A.
Absolutely. So finally, with all these great amount of features getting released into production, you can accelerate how you create documentation and training guides for end users to know how to use all these new features. So product owners and change managers can work with the operate agent to create these test plans, these documentation on how to use these new features, as you can see here. And the great thing is that these documentation guidelines, you can define them in the workspace level so that everybody that creates documentation in your organization follows the same standards. And you can even define formatting guidelines. You can even define structure, how my documentation should be structured in all the sections.
Wow, so it's like real. I mean, this wasn't like a marketing announcement of a future capability. This stuff is like, it just really works today.
This is not a mock-up. This is live now. And we had hundreds of customers trying it out at Dreamforce. So, this is a great opportunity to accelerate the work that DevOps teams are doing.
Wow, what a concept. We actually talk about a product that's already there and working rather than what's on the roadmap. That's amazing, David.
Totally. And just to close, the agents, it's just the beginning, but we're going to be increasing the knowledge that they have, also connecting them to your Git repository so they are fully aware of your automations and your code so that you can ask questions about how something works. Imagine if it's been implemented even 10 years ago. You can ask, create reports about where a field is being used and explain all the automations around your opportunities and all your Salesforce capabilities. And we're going to be adding skills so that the agents are able to even create records in multiple systems like Jira and Azure, and even deploy some of the code. So now that you've generated it, you can just tell it, hey, can you deploy it in my sandbox so I can go ahead and test it? So imagine all the possibilities here that we can have by having the agents working together and automating some of the user stories for you.
That's amazing. So all of those different personas down there, the developer and admin and architect and analyst and tester, and even the CIO are going to benefit from this. That's amazing.
Absolutely. And just to finish, we have multiple customers who've tried the AI platform and they're getting all these great productivity increases when it comes to troubleshooting, when it comes to generating scripts, when it comes to getting insights on existing metadata. And also, Joe, for example, one of our Copado champions has been sharing that it's the AI platform saves even 20 or 30 hours of additional work every week. And because the agents are available 24/7 and in any language, so it's available for every member of the team. It doesn't matter where they're based on.
That's amazing, David. Okay, we've got one question in already. If you have other questions, please add them to the Q&A panel. But the first question was really not specifically about, well, it's a question about AI, but a current user of CRT was asking how they could speed up the testing cycle and not have to manually manage robots. I guess the first, it's not really an AI answer, but if you get together with your customer success manager, you'll find that we're making a change in the way that we provision robots for CRT and robotic testing, and you will find that we're automating your ability to increase the number of robots automatically that you parallelize. And so I think you'll find with the newer releases that the direct management of robots is going to be improved for you. So you shouldn't see that issue anymore. I'll go back over to the Q&A section here. How flexible are we with onboarding these agents? Can I keep utilizing Tosca Selenium for my testing strategy and just move to AI agents for the release? Absolutely. We are, Copado is a CI/CD DevOps platform. And even though we would love for you guys to be completely Copado from beginning to end, we know that that's just not feasible. And so you can continue to run your own testing agents if you want in a different tool. And you can, most of our customers use Jira now. With this AI enrichment, you'll find that we provide a lot of value add to the user stories. And so you may find doing more work in Copado user stories and then back syncing that into Jira. But certainly you are able to use different tools throughout the process. And we even have an integration framework that makes this easy for you. And you'll find pre-built integrations on the DevOps Exchange that help you do that. Okay, the next question, will that Copado GPT go away? And then do I have to pay for just one agent? And when will Copado GPT go away? So Copado GPT is transitioning over to the Copado Expert. And there are programs like the Early Access program that you can get into right now. And I am, as an evangelist and a product guy, I am not talking about pricing or anything having to do with that, I think you should contact your account representative and understand what, as a Copado GPT user, what your options are today for that. Can you please touch on security aspects, like are all the prompts, user stories, requirements stored in a database, or do you have a zero copy architecture? David Venegas, why don't you take that one?
Absolutely. So we have a strict data infrastructure behind the scenes. So every customer has their own independent vector database where we store chat history and any documents that have been uploaded. And so that there's no sharing of infrastructure, but each customer has their own space, even physically, with an independent database. And then also these information, the moment you delete a chat, the moment you delete a file, it disappears automatically and forever from the database. So there's no trace of that. And we use our AI models within our own secure infrastructure. So none of the information is going out to third-party APIs or third-party providers outside our infrastructure.
Great. The next question is, as a Copado user, how can I access these agents? First of all, talk a little bit about the alternative ways it's not available yet, but I understand that we can access these agents in Slack and Teams and even VS Code in the near future, right? I guess I'm breaking the rule and talking about future stuff, but it's already working in the lab. And just talk to how do the users access the agents?
Totally. So our AI platform is in our robotic platform web application. So that means that every member of your team can access it independently if they have or not have a Salesforce license or a CI/CD or CRT license. So the whole idea with the AI platform is that you can bring business analysts and also developers, testers, product owners, change managers, because at the end of the day, everybody benefits from the AI platform technology in making sure you streamline all the different stages of DevOps. And so, however, as David mentioned, the agents are going to be coming right to you. So we're going to be introducing the agents on Slack, so you can just tag them and you can talk with them from Slack or from Teams, and also to many other places, so you can easily interact with them.
That's great. Another question about how to get access and can it work with our current package? And again, I think the best thing to do, because every customer situation is slightly different, give a shout out to your Copado account executive and understand what the early access program could do for you to get access right away. I think we have time maybe for one or two more. I'm a Salesforce technical architect. In a typical project, we have 500 flows, 200 invocable classes. Can Test Agent help create tests, test call flows, and do asserts? How can Build Agent help creating flows? David?
Totally. So there's different ways. So one way is that you can ask the agent to give you a step-by-step process to create a flow for a particular feature that you have. So for example, I have a user story to create a record-triggered automation on my opportunity object. So you can have the agent guide admins and developers on how they need to build these flows with the filters and with all the different options that are available on Flow. The other use case as a technical architect, if you want to understand how some of your flows, existing flows in that org are working, you know that right now you have to do 1,000 clicks to uncover all the filters and everything that's under the hood of your flow. So it's really tedious. So, with a few clicks, you can upload these flows that you probably have on your repo cloned locally already. So you can upload these a few files, and then you can ask the agents to describe all the functionality that these flows have. So you can even report on your existing flows. Think about all the different filters, and actually, maybe I can show you an example here later, but it can explain to you all the different parts of a flow and what's the filters that are being used. And so you can really accelerate that work of understanding existing flows. You can understand any impact. So if you're deleting a field, you can ask, hey, how is this, if I delete this field, how is it going to impact my flows that you have on your conversation? And so you can really do a lot of different design decisions, improvements, brainstorm on how to improve the security, etc.
Okay, great. I think we're getting close on time. One last question is, can AI agents help in resolving conflicts, like merge conflicts resolution and things like that, especially with flows?
Absolutely. So you can actually have the conflict, you can add it on your conversation, and you can interact with AI to help you pinpoint not only to describe why the conflict is happening, but also even suggest solutions for you as well.
Okay, great. Well, we're out of time now, and I want to go ahead to that next slide. One of the questions is, if you want to join the DevOps revolution, you can join the community. There was a question about the how do I get to more information about the AI agents? The reality is we've got a lot of information on our website, but you can also join the community and get more training and information there just by using that QR code. We are almost at
Yeah, we
100.
we have the new Academy module that's available on the AI platform in our community. So make sure to check that out.
That'd be great. And just we're almost up to 100,000 community members. We should exceed 100,000 coming up in the next couple of weeks, and we're really excited about that. And we really believe in beefing up the community and trying to support you guys. It's like I said, it's people, process, and tools, and we need to make sure that your people are trained and you've got the right processes in place. And the community is all about that as well. David, is there another slide, or is that it?
Thank you.
谢谢你们，谢谢大家。
Merci beaucoup tous. Thank you very much for taking the time and joining us for this webinar. We're very excited about the future. I'm even contacting you from Mars. No, just kidding. But thank you everyone for joining, and hope we got you excited with the possibilities of AI in the DevOps process. So thank you, everyone.
Simon, do you want to close it out?
Yeah, no, I was just going to reiterate, thank you everyone for joining us today, for all your questions and your engagement as well. But also thank you, David and David, for taking the time to share your insights as well. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day.